I watched the aurora with my husband in Iceland. He took out his phone to video call his sickly childhood sweetheart. I asked him to hang up. He thought I was being unreasonable and abandoned me in the icy wilderness. Watching the car fade away under the flickering aurora, I suddenly felt exhausted. After flying back to the country alone, I asked for a divorce. Let's get a divorce. Just because I video called Allison. Besides, she's in poor health. Can you be more accommodating? I'm accommodating. I'm giving you up to her. Look, it's the aurora. After waiting for nearly 10 nights, we chased down the aurora on this night that almost spanned across Iceland. I screamed with excitement as I watched the aurora flow across the night sky. Turning back to call Brian to get out of the car quickly, I saw him already holding up his phone towards the aurora. Allison, look, it's the aurora. His face, cold throughout the trip, rarely showed a hint of softness. To make it easier for the person on the other end of the video to see the aurora clearly, he took off his gloves. His well-defined hand quickly turned red from the cold and trembled, but he still held the phone high. His tone was completely different from the icy coldness before. Allison, after so many days, I finally captured the aurora for you. When you get better, I'll take you to see the real aurora. His handsome face was covered with a layer of faint warm light, and the corners of his lips raised in a light and gentle smile. I stood frozen in place, not knowing whether to cry or laugh, get angry or pretend not to hear. Allison was Brian's childhood sweetheart, and I had been married to Brian for 5 years. Back then, Brian swore that Allison was just his childhood friend, that they had lost contact long ago. But in the end, perhaps from the moment of our reunion, all my choices were wrong. My eyelashes blinked lightly, shaking off the floating snow on them. I still couldn't help sniffing my sour nose. Brian, can you not make video calls? Impatience instantly appeared on his face. What's wrong with me making a video call? Nothing. This is our wedding anniversary trip. Only then did Brian seem to remember that today was our 5th wedding anniversary. He pursed his lips awkwardly, his brows softening a bit. Yet he still said sheepishly, Allison has never seen the aurora. I wanted her to see it. At this time, a weak female voice sounded from his phone. Brian, is sister-in-law angry? I didn't mean to disturb your trip. It's all because of my poor health. As soon as the voice fell, a few sobs were heard. On the screen, the girl with an abnormally pale face looked pitiful, her eyes red as she shed a few tears. Seeing Allison cry, Brian immediately frowned. His beautiful eyes reflected Allison's figure, full of heartache. It's not disturbing. Then he continued sharing the aurora with the person on the phone, completely ignoring my frozen expression. A dull pain spread through my heart. Allison. It's always Allison. 2 years ago, she returned to the country with injuries and illness. I inexplicably felt something was going to change. Sure enough, as long as Allison's eyes reddened and she shed a few tears, Brian would always soften. No matter how busy Brian was, for every one of Allison's surgeries, he waited outside the operating room, comforting each other with the Lee family like one family. And when my mother had a car accident, I waited alone outside the emergency room, close to breaking down, only to receive a message that he was out of town and couldn't come back. Later, I had to work and take care of my mother, overwhelmed and almost fainting at my desk. Brian said, even if I go back, Mom can't recover immediately. Just hang in there. I had to run around and find a caregiver myself. With just one sentence, Allison could make the always busy Brian stop to accompany her. I thought I could endure it. I comforted myself that their families were old friends, so taking care of her was appropriate. We planned this wedding anniversary trip for 3 years. I fantasized about us lying in the snow under the aurora, embracing and kissing, commemorating every moment together with memories. But it was shattered again. I didn't want to endure anymore. Watching Brian smile faintly and chat happily with Allison, a burst of anger suddenly rose in my mind. I stepped forward a few steps and knocked Brian's phone away. The light instantly extinguished on his face, leaving only astonishment. The phone fell into a snow pit, completely silent. What are you doing? Brian pushed me away. My foot slipped, and I lost my balance, falling backward. Fortunately, behind me was thick layers of snow. The snow caught my falling body. He frantically searched in the snow pit where the phone had smashed a deep hole. until the phone appeared unharmed. He breathed a sigh of relief. The phone had been frozen shut down. Sarah, you are being too unreasonable. I'm unreasonable. I told you. Allison is just my childhood friend. Why do you always target her? Childhood friend. Can a childhood friend make you never miss any of her surgeries? Can a childhood friend make her the first person you think of on your wedding anniversary? After speaking, I was nearly exhausted. I had accumulated these words for too long. So long that I felt I was starting to feel strange towards Brian. Brian didn't speak, but the annoyance between his brows gradually deepened. You crossed the line. He turned and got into the car, started it and drove away, leaving me alone in the icy wilderness. The aurora still danced in the dark sky. The wind and snow became heavier. The car shadow also slowly disappeared from view, becoming a blurry small black dot. Warm tears froze on my face. I slowly squatted down and curled myself up. Only then did I seem to feel a little warmth. The first time I saw Brian, it seemed to be a similar scene. On the campus in early autumn, the rain fell harder and harder. Students with umbrellas had long left in 2s and 3s. I didn't have an umbrella, squatting in the corridor anxiously waiting for my family to bring me one. At this time, a gust of wind seemed to whiz past me, blowing up my hair. My body couldn't help but shiver. Classmate, no umbrella. Take this one. I looked up. Brian held a transparent umbrella tilted towards me, handing the umbrella handle to me. Before I could thank him, he turned and ran into the rain again. My long silent heart thumped heavily. Later I found out, Brian gave the umbrella to me just to hide under a school uniform with Allison. The two were the dazzling twin stars of the grade, and I was an ordinary student who only dared to steal a few glances at Brian during the flag-raising speeches. So I buried my secret crush deep in my heart early on. Spent a difficult youth, until I finished my studies and returned to the country. At a blind date event instigated by my mother and old classmates, I met Brian again. At this time, he was still dazzling, but his temperament was more mature and steady than in high school. When not smiling, his face was cold and stern, unconsciously attracting all my attention. And I was no longer the obscure little girl in puberty. I went up to greet him calmly and confidently, with an unconcealable smile on the corner of my mouth. Hello. Do you still remember me? Although Brian was puzzled, he still shook hands with me out of politeness. You are Sarah. We went to the same high school. Really? Brian seemed to remember something, and his frosty brows melted a little, but he was poked aside by his mother. Oh, isn't this little Sarah? She went to the same high school as our Brian. That girl was very shy back then. Didn't like to play with them noisy ones. We exchanged WeChat under the matchmaking of our parents. Just like that, we knew each other again. Iceland's winter is really cold. So cold that tears cannot flow. I wrapped myself tightly in my clothes to prevent warmth from escaping through the gaps. Fortunately, it was only a 2-hour walk to the city from here. I decided to walk to the destination myself. The aurora was still jumping overhead, flowing forward like green waves and spring water in the sky. I quietly looked up at the sky that looked like the bottom of the sea. The surging emotions in my heart gradually calmed down. Every strand of flowing aurora seemed to be telling me, I erupted for you, just this once, to help you see a person clearly. No, next time. Don't wrong yourself anymore. I could faintly see the flickering lights of the city. I was invited into a car by a kind couple who wanted to take me to a hotel in the city. Why are you here alone? It's too dangerous. I just smiled and said thank you, without explaining too much. The heating in the car was sufficient. After my body temperature warmed up, the physical pain was finally released wantonly. My face hurt from the wind blades, and my stomach tightened with waves of pain. The hostess noticed I kept clutching my stomach with a bad complexion, so she handed over a moderate-sized piece of bread. It was my second meal today. Brian's patience ran out on the second day of the trip. If it weren't for the aurora hanging there, he might have abandoned me and returned to the country earlier. So after a simple meal before departure this morning, he was unwilling to stop at noon and ate all the emergency food in the car himself. Brian, didn't you think of leaving some for me? Or even ask if I needed to eat? He would only glance at me impatiently. I thought you ate. I didn't say much, just thinking I could eat when we arrived. But I didn't expect him to really leave me alone on the suburban road. The sweet and greasy bread mixed with bitter tears went down to my stomach, briefly comforting my unease. After arriving at the place, I took out all the little change left on me and handed it to the couple. They smiled and declined, saying no need. You are the toughest girl I've ever seen, and casually stuffed a mini pink sweater keychain into my hand. I watched them leave, looking at the empty message bar, rebooked a room, changed the flight ticket. The next day I flew back to the country alone. The second before the plane took off, I sent a WeChat message to Brian. Let's get a divorce. Then turned off the phone and forced myself to sleep, as if sleeping could make me forget everything. In the dream, the young Brian and the reunited Brian appeared repeatedly. When we just got married, he wasn't like this. At that time, Brian was still very patient with me. Not long after the blind date event, he contacted me first, using the same high school as an excuse. We talked about a lot of gossip from back then, but he kept his mouth shut about Allison. I was also embarrassed to ask why the couple everyone envied back then didn't end up together. Later we followed the usual blind date process. Eating, watching movies, dating, getting along. I found that both of us had many similar hobbies. We kissed, heart-to-heart, intimate. I thought I was too lucky to meet the person I had a crush on in my youth at this age and become my true lover. So we naturally walked into marriage. In the first few years, Brian's mother pressured us to have children. But I was in the rising period of my career and decided to talk about children after stabilizing. Brian took the initiative to block the pressure. Mom, we are still young. It's too early to have children. What early? It will be too late if you can't conceive later. Brian's eyes were firm. His long arms stretched out to hook my shoulder, giving me the strongest backing. Whenever Sarah wants to have children, we will have children. Don't worry about it. Just like this. We lived sweetly for a few years. I heard the news of Allison returning to the country. The Shin family and the Lee family were old friends. As a relative, I also attended the welcome party for Allison's return. Allison was still the same as in high school. Skin white to glowing. Very thin but tall. This must be Brian's wife. Allison, Brian's childhood friend. Her brows curved into a beautiful arc. No fault could be picked in her gestures. I thought this was the ordinary side, until Brian came home later and later, asking him. It was social engagements outside. I didn't take it to heart much, until news came that Allison's heart disease recurred and she was hospitalized in critical condition. I accompanied a friend to see a doctor and saw the disheveled, readied Brian outside her ward. He told me he was on a business trip out of town. I thought of questioning, getting angry, or having a big fight. But later all defeated by Brian's coaxing words one by one. He gave all the money he earned to me, saying they were just childhood friends. Again and again. Brian's patience ran out, and I was finally tired. After the plane landed, I felt my lower abdomen still hurting badly. Opening the phone, there was only a reply from Brian. Stop making a fuss. I suddenly laughed out loud, even holding my belly laughing. Clutching my stomach that hurt so much I broke into a cold sweat. Squatting on the ground, people around moved away as if seeing a crazy person. Until my best friend Chloe came to pick me up. Where's your Brian? Why did you come back alone? Only then did I finally lose my strength and fall into her arms. Chloe was shocked when she saw my pale face clearly. Why are you sweating so much? I bit my lip hard, squeezing a sound from my throat. It hurts so much. I'll take you to the hospital. I held the tiny pink sweater given by the couple in my hand. A tear rolled down from the corner of my eye. At the hospital, the doctor diagnosed threatened miscarriage. Very dangerous. If you don't want it, surgery is recommended now. If you want to keep it, we will try our best. Chloe was so anxious she bit the skin off her lip. Why can't Brian be reached by phone? Worries me to death. I grabbed Chloe. I don't want this child anymore. What? I buried my head on Chloe's shoulder. I want a divorce. Have you thought it through? She had seen my excitement when I talked about the secret crush after reuniting with Brian. Also seen my jealousy and anger because Brian went to find Allison time and again. But she always stood by my side. Okay, I support you. Chloe took leave to accompany me for the surgery. After the surgery, she supported me preparing to be discharged, but met the travel-worn Brian at the hospital entrance. He looked anxious originally, but his face changed instantly the moment he saw me. Why are you here? I didn't even have the strength to laugh, barely pulling the corner of my mouth. Whether I'm here or not doesn't hinder you from finding Allison. Right. Must you make a fuss with me? Brian pursed his thin lips, eyes cold. I saw the emotions in his eyes clearly. Didn't want to say anything more, signaling Chloe to bypass him and continue forward. He suddenly grabbed my hand, looking carefully at my expression, frowning tightly. A wave of unease spreading. Why are you in the hospital? Then why are you in the hospital? I sneered and threw off his hand. At this time, Brian's phone rang strongly again. He looked at the phone and then at me with indifferent eyes. Finally chose to walk into the hospital without looking back. Back home, Chloe was still worried about me. Can you manage alone? I nodded affirmatively, raising a faint smile. I can. If I can't manage alone, I'll call you. Finally watching Chloe leave the community looking back every 3 steps. I looked at the small home decorated by the 2 of us. There were traces of us getting along everywhere. Suddenly felt disgusted. So I packed all his things out in a brainwave, threw them all outside the door. Then contacted a locksmith to change to a combination lock. Looking at the empty home, a weight seemed to be lifted from the bottom of my heart. I quickly prepared the divorce agreement, took a photo and sent it to Brian. I hope we can divorce as soon as possible. Don't delay each other. Didn't wait for Brian's reply. The door was suddenly knocked violently. After a few bang-bang sounds, Sarah. It was Brian. Through the peephole, saw him frowning and banging on the door. After waiting for a long time without a response, he kicked the things I threw outside the door in exasperation. I know you're inside. Open the door quickly. My fingertips pressed tightly on the dull pain in my chest. Spoke through the door. Brian, let's get a divorce. What did you say? Can you open the door to talk? Allison fell ill again. That's why I went to the hospital. Don't overthink. Okay. I opened the door abruptly, bumping into his trembling eyes. Firm yet embarrassed, I said, let's get a divorce. Brian raised his eyebrows in dissatisfaction. Incredulous. Just because I video called Allison. Besides, she's in poor health. Can you be more accommodating? Suddenly the dull pain turned into a stinging pain. Fingertips digging deep into palms, suppressing the trembling of lips. Words seemed to be tightly gripped by the choke in the throat. Every word spat out was nearly broken. I'm accommodating. I'm giving you up to her. Voice fell. Dizziness intensified before my eyes. Next second darkness fell, and consciousness plunged into the void. Before the 5 senses completely disappeared, I heard Brian scream my name. Why did it come to this step? When I lay on the cold operating table, my mind was full of this sentence. Maybe seeing my eyes full of sorrow. The doctor told me not to be nervous. Healthy body will have children later. Yes, there will be children later. Will Brian and I go back to the past? In the 3rd year of marriage, we decided to have a child. It just happened that Allison returned to the country at this time. Brian, I remember you 2 were first loves. Right. Very high profile in high school. In these 3 years, our relationship was very good. So I said this in a teasing tone. Brian's face changed abruptly, keeping a cold face and not speaking for a long time. I shut my mouth resentfully. Unexpectedly felt uneasy at the bottom of my heart. If really let go, would he still mind my teasing? Topics like this were not unmentioned. I occasionally mentioned where I ate or traveled with my ex-boyfriend. He would be jealous and awkward for a long time. No, let's go once. I want you to leave memories deeper than your ex-boyfriend, overriding all the previous ones. I laughed at his childishness, holding his cheeks. He held the back of my head, lips and teeth blending. So under the vast night sky, we watched stars on the roof of the RV, danced waltz under the Milky Way, roasted marshmallows by the fire. Crazy ideas ran wild in the mind. That day, we did many things, yet only did one thing. So happy that I thought it would be fine to die at that moment. That moment, sincerity allowed no discord. But later and later, his heart drifted to his 17-year-old self. Just seeing Allison, he would remember the 17-year-old wind, bouncing ponytail walking side by side in the corridor filled with morning sun. He forgot. It was he who chose to walk into marriage with me first. It was he who wanted to nurture life with me. I should persuade myself to let go. Waking up again. Before my eyes was the hospital's snow-white ceiling. Throat dry. I moved my dry lips. Gaze fell on the surroundings. Only then realized no one was around. The corner of the mouth couldn't help curling up a self-mocking smile, propped up the body wanting to leave. The blue curtain was pulled open violently. It was Brian and his mother, Sarah, awake, as a mother-in-law. Although Brian's mother often urged for children, she respected me in other aspects. So even if I didn't want to look at Brian again, I would endure it in front of Brian's mother. What happened? Fainted suddenly. Is there something wrong with the body? Hurry up and do a full body checkup. Or did Brian this brat anger you again? Her eyes were full of worry. I turned my head and looked at Brian. Saw him bowing his head with an unpleasant face. It seemed he didn't tell his mother about me proposing a divorce. Seemed to think I wouldn't say this directly in front of elders. After all, no one would have thought us who were happily traveling in Iceland a few days ago would instantly make a scene to this extent. I adjusted my breathing, looking straight into Brian's mother's eyes. I want a divorce. Hearing this, Brian's mother's breath hitched. Then she showed a decent smile again. What conflict between husband and wife can't be solved? Isn't it all bedside quarrel? No, I said I want a divorce. Brian couldn't listen anymore, interrupting me. Sarah, why are you making a scene in front of Mom again? Back and forth just those few sentences. Don't make a fuss. Only know how to make a fuss. Am I really making a fuss unreasonably? I wanted to leave some dignity for each other. Now it seems unnecessary. I miscarried. Brian's pupils shrank sharply. The disgusted expression froze on his face, wanting to refute but words stuck in his mouth making no sound, only squeezing out a sentence. What? I looked up, colliding with his panicked gaze. Once I was moved by this. Now looking at his face only makes me want to vomit. From the time he left me alone in the snow regardless. Since I walked on foot for nearly 2 hours, the child couldn't be kept. Brian raised his hand wanting to touch my cheeks unknowingly covered with tears. I slapped his hand away. Don't touch me. It only makes me feel disgusted. Salty and rusty taste surged in the throat. I couldn't help retching a few times, then clenched the quilt corner again, forcing my broken voice to return to normal. Brian, do you know, that day I didn't eat anything all day. If not for kind people, I guess I would have lost my life too. You didn't call me until I flew back to the country. I thought my child had no father, so it wanted to leave. I fulfilled its wish. Sorry. His strength seemed to be drawn out suddenly. His tall and broad figure collapsed by half instantly, holding the hospital bed kneeling on the ground. Eyes red, teeth clenched, thin lips trembling uncontrollably. If sorry was useful, what are police for? I raised the corner of my mouth and sneered. I was laughing at Brian's ridiculousness, and also seemed to be mocking the once naive self. Thought the heaven sent could beat the childhood sweetheart. I plunged myself into his chapter, a chapter that never belonged to me. In the end, only got absurdity all over the ground. Brian's mother's face turned green, then white, then green again. She seemed not to expect her own son would do such a thing. Words of comfort wanted to be spoken, but stuck in the mouth, unable to come out for a long time. The air froze for a long time in an instant. I turned sideways, not wanting to see them again. Brian. A soft female voice sounded behind them, familiar as can be. It was Allison. Brian turned back immediately. What are you doing here? Perhaps because he had just choked with sobs. His tone was really not gentle. Allison had never seen him like this. Suddenly scared, speechless for a long time. I heard sister-in-law was hospitalized. I came to see. I had enough of her addressing me. Every sentence made me sick. Gritting my back teeth, abruptly interrupted her words. Enough. Don't call me sister-in-law. I've heard enough to be sick. Clearly I'm younger than you. At worst peers in the same grade. Brian calls you by nickname intimately. I don't want to be your sister-in-law. Get out. You all get out of here for me. Her pale little face turned a few inches whiter, hand immediately covering her heart. Brian immediately stood up to support Allison, full of worry. Brian's mother looked at me quickly, then at Brian and Allison. Face sink. Apologetically said to me, Sarah, it's our Shin family who wronged you, but I still hope you can consider the divorce carefully. Then glanced at them again, anger rising from nowhere, forcefully pulling the two apart. Allison, I didn't agree 10 years ago. Don't think I will agree 10 years later. Then slap. Hit Brian's face. Look clearly. Who is your wife? You are not a child anymore. Brian's head was hit to the side, not recovering for a long time. Allison sobbed and fled from here. I quietly watched this drama, unable to stop laughing in my heart. If I didn't know what happened 10 years ago, maybe I would be moved by Brian's mother's actions. Unfortunately, I don't want to be manipulated. 10 years ago, ending high school campus life and stepping into university, Brian and Allison also naturally came together. Although not in the same university, still extremely good relationship. So both families tacitly accepted this relationship named childhood sweethearts. Don't know how. Suddenly, the illness lurking in Allison exploded. Because she missed the optimal surgery period, her heart would faint as long as the pressure was slightly high or emotional fluctuations were excessive. Two families were old friends and children were dating. Allison's parents felt relieved to let Brian's mother know the condition. Unexpectedly, Brian's mother secretly asked the doctor about Allison's fertility. So the doctor explained. Allison earning a day lived from now on. As for pregnancy and childbirth, that was nonsense. At that time, the young couple were full of love, fearless of illness, trying to stay together for life. Naturally wouldn't break up because of this kind of thing. Until Brian's mother knew how serious Allison's condition was. Interfered, secretly forcing Brian to cut off contact with Allison. Even threatened with her own life. You must have children in the future. Allison is in poor health. Giving birth hurts her body greatly. Then don't have children. Brian, you disappoint me too much. Your dad died early. I only have you as a son to rely on. Do you want to force me to death? Brian was in a dilemma, watching his mother pointing the knife tip at herself. Finally chose to let go. He didn't want to propose a breakup first. Self-silenced. Under long cold violence, Allison couldn't wait for Brian. Helplessly proposed to break up herself, then flew abroad for treatment. Since then, he never dated again. Until he met me on a blind date. I once doubted if it had to be me. Later found out. Maybe anyone would do. Just happened to be me. Because I told him about the crush in my youth that ended without a result. Thinking I was a lucky person. His heart once trembled for this. He thought he would say goodbye to the past forever. Until Allison returned to the country. Only to find that people cannot deceive their own hearts. In the following days, Brian stood downstairs for several days, begging for my forgiveness. If not for fighting the divorce lawsuit, I would have blocked his phone long ago. Seeing he couldn't meet me, just blocked me right at my parents' door. Sarah, I was confused. Can you forgive me? He cried with a hoarse voice. The usually image-conscious him had a chin covered with stubble, whimpering begging for my forgiveness. Parents heard me finish the reason. Anger and sadness intertwined. After a long silence, could only sigh. Mom and Dad always support your decision. Shut him outside. Watching him alone under the dim street lamp, my heart could no longer turn a ripple. He took leave from the company, trying his best to redeem. Downstairs of the community I live in, downstairs of the company, his squatting shadow could be seen everywhere. First month, second month, third month, every time in court, contrasted with my indifference. Brian always confessed his deep love to me with tears. Sarah, have you forgotten everything we experienced? I don't agree to divorce. I swear, you are my eternal only one. And I watched him perform with a sneer. Never let up. Once, twice, 3 times. After the company issued a dismissal warning to him, he finally couldn't hold on. We reached a divorce agreement. House to me. He felt sorry for me leaving with nothing. Walking out the gate after getting the divorce certificate, the last haze pressing on the bottom of the heart was completely removed. I looked at the sun on the horizon, feeling relaxed. But in the last second I was about to leave, he couldn't help pulling me. Sarah, I hope you don't doubt my sincerity. I looked at his expression lightly. The usually handsome face haggard a lot. I really love you. Love very, very much. Then what about Allison? That's different. Then let me put it another way. Do you really love me and want to marry me? Or compromise with reality? Brian opened his mouth, realizing he was contradictory. Didn't continue. I never expected how much you loved me initially. I just hoped you could fulfill the duties a husband should have. You are really a cowardly person, neither protecting the person you love, nor bearing any responsibility. You never loved anyone. You only love yourself. Unsuppressible contempt overflowed in the eyes. I shook off his hand, still pulling my arm, left without looking back. For me and him, absurdity should end too. A long time passed. I automatically blocked news about Brian. But still from time to time various messages drilled into my ears. Heard that Brian broke with his mother for Allison. Heard that Brian lost his job after being dismissed by the company for repeated absence. Heard that Allison separated from Brian. She wants to go abroad for treatment again. Scene replayed. But the protagonist was no longer me. Brian knelt at Allison's door, begging bitterly for another chance. I listened to all this indifferently with an outsider's attitude, occasionally sighing. Luckily saw clearly early, withdrew in time, but unexpectedly received an invitation from Allison. Allison sipped tea, raised her eyes to meet mine, eyes filled with tears. "Thank you for accepting my invitation." I nodded slightly, waiting for her following text. "Brian told me then that you and he were just in a contract marriage, would divorce when the 5-year marriage contract expired, and be with me." At that time I thought, I waited so long, not short of these 1 or 2 years. But who knew? Speaking of this, Allison sobbed a few times. Did he lie to me? I hugged my arms across my chest. Didn't you already know the truth? After Brian got the divorce certificate with me, still ran downstairs every few days, harassing me with excuses like clothes not taken or things forgotten. I threw them all away. "Don't come." I refused all mercilessly, watching him kneel at the door coldly. He lowered his head with red eyes. Really have to be so heartless. Not heartless waiting to block my fortune. Then I snorted coldly and closed the door, planning to sell this house and move elsewhere, completely cut off from the past. Brian, who got the cold shoulder from me, turned to pay court to Allison again. At first, Allison was delighted that Brian returned to her side. Brian threw his mother's repeated obstructions to the back of his mind. The two lived a few good days, until Brian's mother saw the two clingy together again. Cursed loudly, "My son can be with any woman, except you, a woman who can't lay eggs." Also wanted to force Brian to reconcile with me. Divorced can remarry. Is there such a big conflict? Isn't it just a miscarriage? As long as can conceive. Hearing this, Allison realized belatedly that she was cheated, coming to me to seek the truth. If really loved her, would she wait for only cold violence and forced breakup at the age she needed him most? And, when she wanted to let go and be relieved, use high-sounding words to weave a false dream? In the end, it was all a scam. Hearing about Brian again was already 2 years later. At this time my career was rising, ready to be sent to other countries to study. And him. After Allison went abroad, he collapsed. Of course. Not only this matter made him collapse, he was freer after problems at work. Brian's mother forced him to blind date with different girls every day again. At first, some people fancied Brian's good appearance and glib tongue. I secretly revealed what he did to every girl who contacted him. Slowly, no one was willing to agree to blind date with him anymore, and I encountered a relationship without a result later. After experiencing too much, I recovered quickly. After all, doing anything at this age is most energetic. I turned grief into motivation, devoted wholeheartedly to work and building myself. But somehow Brian knew, thought I was heartbroken, spent great effort to add my WeChat. "Brian. I am Brian. You broke up. Are you okay?" I looked at the 3 lines on the screen and just wanted to laugh. Me. Broke up. Brian. I miss you. Let's reconcile, okay? Me. Not lending money. Brian. Am not short of money. I can support you. Me. Not doing it. Brian. Can you listen to me seriously? Me. Cannot. Brian. What are you doing recently? These days I always recall our past, watching stars and moon together. I really want to find you, but I don't have courage. Me. If not, then hold it in. Too lazy to spend too much effort on such a person. Blocked and deleted with one click. I looked at the spring and bright scenery outside the window. Don't know what things or people will be encountered in the future, but beauty is waving at me.